Imagine this, the scent of crushed grapes under your boots, the sun bleeding gold across rows of vines you planted with your own hands, every leaf a promise to your late husband, every harvest a toast to the son you raised alone. Now, picture that son, the boy who once chased fireflies through these same rows, calling you from a gleaming winery office. "Mom, I bought the vineyard next door with your retirement. Michael and I needed it for our empire. You can visit on weekends." The line goes dead. The grapes keep growing. And in that single, soul-shattering second begins the sweetest, most merciless revenge a vintner ever fermented. One aged in silence, decanted with secrets, and served ice cold at harvest. I'm Evelyn Harper, 70 years old, widowed, and the true owner of every root in this soil. This is the raw, uncorked story of how I turned betrayal into vintage justice. If you've ever been robbed by family, erased by greed, or told your legacy doesn't matter, hit subscribe right now. Smash like if you're ready for revenge poured to perfection, and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Let's harvest the truth. The call came on a September afternoon, the kind where the air is thick with the promise of ripeness, and the vines outside my kitchen window hang heavy with Cabernet grapes. I was pruning the backyard trellis, my small hobby plot, the one my late husband Thomas and I had nurtured since our son Jacob was in diapers, when my phone buzzed on the picnic table. It was Jacob, 35, slick-talking real estate hustler, the boy I'd put through college on double shifts at the cannery, the man whose wedding I'd paid for with the last of Thomas's life insurance. His voice was all polished marble. "Mom, great news! Michael and I closed on the old Rutherford vineyard, 1,200 acres, prime Napa soil. We used your retirement accounts for the down payment. Title's in your name for tax reasons. You're welcome to swing by for tastings." Before I could choke out a word, the call ended. I stood there, secateurs dangling, staring at the phone like it had sprouted thorns. My entire retirement, 40 years of overtime, every bonus, every skipped vacation, gone. Drained to buy a playground for his ego. And the cottage I'd lived in for 45 years, suddenly collateral. I sank onto the bench, the grapes mocking me with their sweetness. And for the first time since Thomas's funeral, I didn't cry. Something ancient and deliberate stirred inside me, like sediment settling in a barrel. Because Jacob didn't know. He thought he'd robbed a helpless widow. He had no idea I'd been cultivating a secret vintage all along. It started 20 years ago, the year Thomas's heart gave out in the vineyard. He'd been tying canes at dawn, kissed my forehead, and collapsed between the rows. The funeral was small. Jacob was away at college, too busy with midterms to come home. That night, alone in our bedroom, I found a manila envelope tucked inside Thomas's Bible. "Evie," it read in his blocky handwriting, "if you're reading this, I'm pruning in the great beyond. I never told you everything. The vineyard plots I bought in secret, 10 acres here, 20 there, scattered across Sonoma and Mendocino, are yours. Leased to co-ops, silent partnerships, offshore trusts. The ledger's in the root cellar, behind the 78 Cabernet. There's enough to buy half of Napa twice over. Keep it quiet. Let Jacob earn his way. Love always. T." I'd cried then, but I'd obeyed. I'd kept working, kept saving, kept the secret. The leases rolled in. Quiet wire transfers, 6 figures a year, funneled into accounts Jacob never knew existed. By the time he called with his great news, my hidden empire was worth $12 million, and he'd just poured my visible retirement, $1.2 million, into a single, over-leveraged vineyard he'd titled in my name. The irony was richer than any vintage. I didn't sleep that night. I walked the rows of my backyard vines, barefoot in the dew, touching each leaf like it was Thomas's hand. I thought of Jacob at 5, riding on my hip while I grafted cuttings. At 15, sneaking sips of my homemade wine and swearing he'd own the valley one day. At 35, laughing in texts to Michael, Mom's too busy counting pennies to notice we drained her accounts. Old people are so predictable. I'd seen the screenshots. My neighbor's tech-savvy grandson had pulled them from a hacked group chat. Jacob planning to sell my cottage for tasting room expansion, joking about putting me in assisted living with a view of the compost heap. Every word was a thorn. But thorns make great trellises, and I had a plan to train his greed into something useful. The next morning, I called Daniel Reyes, Thomas's old lawyer, the one who drafted every secret trust. His office smelled of oak barrels and old paper, a sanctuary in downtown Napa. "Evelyn," he said, eyes narrowing as I laid out the fraud. "This is felony identity theft, wire fraud, elder abuse. We can have Jacob in handcuffs by sundown." I raised a hand. "Not yet. I want him to feel the crush. Freeze the vineyard quietly, lien, injunction, whatever it takes. But let him think he's winning until harvest. Then we press." Daniel grinned like a fox in the henhouse. "You're a dangerous woman, Evie Harper." I smiled back. "I'm a vintner. Danger is just another tannin." I started the performance immediately. I let the neighbors see me counting coins at the farmer's market, wearing Thomas's threadbare flannel, hair unwashed. Mrs. Delgado from the co-op caught me staring at a $3 bunch of chard. "Evelyn, you okay? Heard Jacob bought the Rutherford place." I sighed, letting my shoulders sag. "He's ambitious. I'm just trying to keep the cottage lights on." She pressed the chart into my hands, promising jam. The grocer, the mailman, the tasting room girls all got the same story. Poor Evie, robbed blind by her own flesh, too proud to beg. I sold a few jars of my backyard jam for grocery money, just enough to keep the act airtight. Jacob called once from a gleaming winery office with oak barrels as backdrop. "Mom, the vines are killer. You gotta see the tasting room. Marble counters, infinity views. Did you get the $5,000 I sent?" "Yes, darling. It'll cover my blood pressure pills." "Perfect. Gotta go. Investors are here." "Love you." Click. He didn't ask if I'd eaten. He didn't mention the cottage again. To him, I was already compost. Meanwhile, Daniel worked in the shadows. He filed quiet liens on the Rutherford vineyard, tax irregularities, environmental violations, a forged signature on the loan docs. The bank froze Jacob's operating accounts, citing suspected fraud. Harvest was 6 weeks away, and the grapes were swelling. $2 million worth of fruit, unpaid pickers, crushing equipment on backorder. Jacob's social media went from triumphant to frantic. Investors needed, prime Napa opportunity, message for details. I watched on a burner account, sipping my backyard wine, letting the panic ferment. I escalated in October. I packed a single duffel, left a note, visiting cousins in Oregon, and checked into a senior living facility in Sonoma under the name Eve Thorne. The place was beige hell. Jell-O salads, bingo nights, the faint smell of disinfectant. I told the staff I was a retired school teacher, widowed, waiting for a pension that never came. I kept one bottle of Thomas's secret 78 Cabernet in a locker, its appraisal safely with Daniel. Jacob's empire was cracking, and I needed to taste the chaos up close. I joined winery forums anonymously, watched Michael brag about flipping the old lady's cash into liquid gold. The comments turned savage. "Heard the bank's foreclosing. Bad karma, dude." By November, they were living in a rented Airstream on the vineyard's edge. Their savings gone, their credit scorched. Jacob posted a tearful reel. "We lost the dream. Please support our GoFundMe to save the harvest." I watched on the facility's communal TV, my heart twisting like a twisted vine. He looked like the boy who'd cried when his first graft failed, not the man who'd grafted my future onto his greed. I made my move in December. Daniel had secured the Rutherford vineyard through a shell company, bought back for pennies from a panicked bank, and frozen Jacob's access to the crushing facility. The grapes were overripe, pickers unpaid, the fruit rotting on the vine. I sent an anonymous tip to the Napa Register. Local hotshots vineyard built on elder fraud. Exclusive docks inside. The story exploded. Son steals $1.2 million from widowed mother to fund wine empire. Jacob's face was plastered everywhere, next to my cottage photo and the forged loan docs. He called me at the facility, hysterical. "Mom, you have to help. The bank's seizing everything." Michael says we need another $500,000 to finish harvest. Can you remortgage the cottage? I let the silence ripen, then whispered, "Jacob, I'm eating oatmeal for dinner. I have nothing." A choked sob, then a click. No apology, just the same entitled boy who'd stolen my sunset. The final act came on Harvest Day, December 28th, the air crisp, the valley humming with desperation. Jacob had hired day laborers with IOUs, promising double pay after crushing. The grapes were desperate, sugar levels sky high, acid dropping fast. I arrived at dawn in Thomas's old pickup, dressed in my best pruning gear, boots polished, hair braided, eyes sharp as shears. Daniel rode shotgun. 2 sheriff's deputies followed in a cruiser. The vineyard gate was padlocked, but I had the key. Daniel had filed the deed transfer quietly weeks ago. We rolled through rows of neglected vines, the Airstream parked crookedly by the tasting room. Jacob was in the crush pad, sweating as he directed pickers, Michael barking orders into a dead phone. They didn't see me until I stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. "Morning, boys," I called, voice carrying like a church bell. Jacob spun, face draining of color. "Mom, what the hell?" He stopped when the deputies flanked me, Daniel unfolding court orders like vintage labels. "Jacob Harper, Michael Kane, this property is under seizure for fraud, elder abuse, and breach of fiduciary trust. Vacate immediately." Michael bolted for the Airstream. A deputy caught him by the collar. Jacob dropped to his knees in the dirt, grapes bursting under his palms. "Mom, please, we can fix this. I'll pay you back every cent." I knelt, eye level, and smiled the way Thomas used to when a graph took. "You already did, son. You just didn't know the vintage." I led them through the tasting room, marble counters smeared with grape juice, infinity views clouded with panic. I showed them the ledger from the root cellar, now updated with my $12 million empire. "These vines," I said, gesturing to the rows, "I've owned them for 20 years. Leased quietly, profits compounding. The Rutherford place, I bought it back last month for 30 cents on the dollar thanks to your little scandal. The cottage, untouchable. And you," I turned to Jacob, voice soft as silk, sharp as a blade, "you're going to work off every dollar you stole, starting now." The sentence was poetic. Jacob and Michael were arrested on the spot, felony fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. Bail was set at $500,000 each. Neither had a dime. I posted it myself. On one condition, they'd work the vineyard under my supervision for 5 years, no pay, living in the bunkhouse. Every penny from sales would fund the Harper Elder Justice Foundation, legal aid for seniors robbed by their kids. The deputies cuffed them as cameras rolled. The Napa Register live-streamed the whole thing. Jacob's last words before the cruiser door slammed, "Mom, I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I was too busy tasting victory. The first year was brutal. Jacob pruned under my eye, hands blistered, learning every vine by name. Michael tried to run once. The sheriff brought him back in cuffs. I made them sleep in the bunkhouse, eat with the pickers, earn every meal. I redecorated the tasting room with photos of Thomas, him tying canes, laughing, alive. Jacob saw them every day. At night, I'd find him on the porch, staring at the stars, whispering apologies to the dark. I didn't forgive him. Not yet. Forgiveness is a slow ferment. Year 2, the vineyard turned profit, $3 million in sales, all donated. Jacob started a blog from the bunkhouse, Confessions of a Prodigal Vintner. It went viral, raw, broken, real. Readers sent letters. "You gave my mom courage to press charges. Thank you." Michael cracked, begged to leave. I let him go, with a lifetime ban from Napa and a $2 million civil judgment. He's flipping burgers in Fresno now. Jacob stayed. He learned to graft, to crush, to bottle. He learned the weight of a dollar earned in sweat. Year 4, I launched the Harper Haven, a free retreat on the vineyard for seniors healing from family fraud. Widows pruned beside Jacob, their stories softening his edges. He taught them to taste soil, to trust again. One night, an 82-year-old named Clara pulled me aside. "Your boy's changed, Evie. He cries when he thinks no one's looking." I nodded, throat tight. The vines were teaching him what I never could. Year 5, harvest day again. The valley buzzed with pickers, laughter, life. Jacob stood beside me in the crush pad, hands stained purple, eyes clear. "Mom, I still dream of Dad. He's proud of you." We poured 2 glasses of the 78 Cabernet, Thomas's last bottle. We toasted in silence, the grapes singing around us. The empire was mine again, richer than ever. The cottage stood untouched, roses blooming wild. And Jacob? He'd become the man Thomas always knew he could be. Sunset spills across the valley like spilled Merlot, painting the vines in fire. Jacob's laughter echoes from the tasting room where seniors raise glasses to second chances. The cottage porch light glows, my beacon, my root. Down the road, a woman my age clutches a foreclosure notice, eyes hollow. I pull over, hand her a bottle of Redemption Red. "Come prune with us tomorrow. The vines don't judge." She climbs the steps. We taste the soil together. And in the coin the papa pork, I hear Thomas's voice. "You did it, Evie. You turned poison into wine." The empire is shared now. The lessons hard won. The family reborn in root and vine. If this story fermented hope in your soul, drop a like, comment your own harvest of justice below, and subscribe with notifications on, because every week I'm uncorking real stories of women who turn betrayal into vintage victory. See you at the next story.